Okay, hey guys. So I've had the Ricoh GR II for a long time now, and before that I had the GR1, but I ended up returning. I had a couple of GR1s and I made some videos about those, but I ended up returning those in favor of an RX 100 Mark II at the time, because I decided that like having a zoom and stuff would be better for an all-around camera. But a while later, I always loved the GR so much, and the concept of it, the concept of having a big sensor, fixed lens, pocketable camera for street shooting, and I absolutely loved it. It's been one of my favorite cameras ever since it came out. All of the GR cameras, but the earlier series didn't have the APS-C size sensor, so they weren't as appealing. But I never made a video about the GR II, but I figured I'd just make a quick video about it right now. So this is the GR II. I think it's very handsome. It's a nice pocket size package. It's really really easy to just slide that in your pocket or carry it around around your neck. I've been meaning to actually put a neck strap on this so I could throw it onto my neck and carry it around. I keep it in a case in my bag most of the time, just to keep dust out of the sensor and to keep it protected, to keep it in nice condition. I have a hot shoe cover on it to cover up the connections at the hot shoe there. And oh, it's already. Anyways, this is my go-to camera. I know I have iPhones. I've had always an iPhone and I use those for snapshots, but this really is my absolute favorite snapshot camera, because really the quality is not comparable to an iPhone. The iPhone quality is great, the color science is absolutely amazing, probably even better than this color science wise in some cases, but the quality and the sharpness, the resolution, especially when you punch in and zoom in to 100%, is just not comparable. Now I know they recently released the GR3, but there are a few problems with the GR3 that I don't quite love. So one of them is that it doesn't have a built-in flash. So I use this, you can see if you go to my Instagram or that's low resolution of course, but if you go to my Flickr, you can see full resolution photos. I use this at night with the flash to do snapshots all the time and get that harsh, high contrast snapshot look, and I love that. So I use the built-in flash on this all the time. And the GR3 removed the flash and there's no built-in flash on it anymore. Now you can get one for the top, but that's just not as convenient. And the GR3 does have a higher resolution, 24 megapixels as opposed to 16 here. But you know what, that's not really a deal breaker. 24 megapixels is nice, but 16 is totally fine. It's all you really need for snapshots for sure. The lens on this, the GR3 also has a new lens, but it's still the same 18mm lens. And this lens is very sharp, it's very nice. It doesn't have a ton of distortion. This is 18mm and that's equivalent to 28mm. So that's a good, it's wide, but it's a good aspect for street shooting and stuff like that. And you can also punch in, and there's a in-camera zoom crop that you can use as well. Some of the other things I like about this are just the aesthetics of it. It's a very clean design. It has a nice textured, it's alloy magnesium body with a really nice texture on it. It has a nice grip. That's one thing that the Sony RX cameras don't have a grip, and so they're not as ergonomic to hold. This has a really nice grip. The design is very, very clean and minimal. You can shoot this in public on the street without really anyone thinking anything about it. It's quiet, pretty much a silent shutter. The only downsides that I find is the focus in low light, like very low light night situations. It kind of hunts for focus, and sometimes it will even give you a green light as if it's focused, but it's not quite focused. There are some ways to work around that. You know, like if you have, say you're shooting on the street and the street has something that's lighting up the street a little bit right in front of you, you can kind of move the focus down. You press function and you can move the focus down and focus on the street in a spot where there's better lighting, and then that will be your focus point. So there's ways to work around it, but doesn't have the best focus or fastest focus in low light. But other than that, the images are extremely sharp. When you're zooming into 100%, it's amazing. I usually shoot on shutter priority. If you're shooting in broad daylight or anything like that, program is fine, because you'll get higher shutter speeds and you'll get sharp images. If you're shooting in lower light situations, you know, like this, it tends to go to 1/40th of a second, and there's no stabilization on the GR2. The GR3 does have in-camera optical stabilization, but the GR2 does not. So 1/40th in a kind of lower light situation is a little bit slow, and you can potentially get some blurred images. So I would generally, in a lower light situation, I'll go to shutter priority and I'll move it to, if you're really holding it nice and steady, you can get away with 1/60th, 1/80th. Obviously your images are getting a little darker and a little darker as you go, speed up the shutter a little bit more, but 1/100, you'll get sharp images if it's a decent, you know, like an indoor artificial lighting or like a desk. 1/100 is pretty safe to hand hold it if you're hand holding it nicely. So the only two kind of downsides are the lack of stabilization in the lower light, and the focus in lower light. But other than that, this is my absolute favorite camera to carry around with me when I'm walking around. The battery is not bad. The GR3 apparently has worse battery life, so this one has better battery life. The video is not good on this, but I don't care, because, you know, my iPhone XS Max now shoots great video. Honestly, what I'm shooting on right now is the A6000 with the 35mm lens, and that gets you some nice, good quality 1080p video with shallow depth of field, because it's a 1.8. But for other stuff, the XS Max at 4K actually gives you better video than this A6000. So I never really use this for video at all. I like the button layout a lot. It's got right here, this little rocker right here is nice to have for exposure compensation, quickly adjusting it a little bit up or down. It's got the autofocus lock here, which is nice. It's got one thing I really love, digital level, because I'm really bad with getting photos straight. I always think it's going to be one way, but then I look at the digital level and it's telling me, okay, move it a little bit this way or a little bit that way, and then I end up looking at them later. If it's a shot that I've sort of eyeballed to think it was straight, I go back and look at it later and it's never quite right. So I ignore my own, you know, feeling about what it should be like, and I look at the digital level. And that's one thing, the A6000 does not have a digital level, and I don't really understand why not, but it doesn't. And then here there's the, you know, standard white balance, flash, function, which will move your focus spot around, macro buttons here. On the side there is a couple more buttons, one for popping the flash up, and one for its defaults to turning Wi-Fi on and off, but you can set it to also picture effect, but you can also set it to do other things. Same with the function 1 and the function 2 buttons. You can set it to whatever you want. At the front here there's a nice little wheel, and that will by default do shutter speed or whatever depending on what mode you're in. So the button layouts and everything are really nice. The menus are pretty basic, but I like the way they're laid out. They're easy to navigate, and it's kind of a utilitarian sort of layout and aesthetic, which I like a lot. So anyways, this is my GR II review, and it's nothing, you know, everyone's reviewed this before, it's nothing special, but I thought I would just do a video about it. And yeah, with GR3 there's some things that are nice about it, but there's also a lot of things that are not so nice about it. Actually, the next camera that I'm really interested in sort of looking at or picking up would actually be the LX100 Mark II from Panasonic. That is a nice package because it's got the zoom lens like the Sony RX100, and it's got the high resolution micro four thirds sensor, and it's got a really nice, again, a nice aesthetic button layout, semi pocketable. It's a little bit bigger, but apparently it does have some pretty bad dust problems with dust getting into the lens, and that's something that I had problems with my I had an RX100, I had a couple different RX100 Mark IIs because I had some problems with it. I had dust problems with the RX100 too, and I sent it in to get cleaned, but that's a pain to do. And the GR, the original GR, I didn't have it long enough for dust problems. The GR2, like I said, I tend to carry it in a little pocket-sized case, so I haven't had problems with dust with that either. But apparently the seal on the lens of the LX100 Mark II is not too good, and people are having some pretty bad dust problems with it. So that's something that I'm nervous about. But as far as like cameras that I'm interested in, I would definitely be interested in upgrading the A6000 with something like a, you know, like an A7 or something with a full frame. But honestly, the A7, the image quality is still really good, even, you know, years later. And the autofocus is still pretty good, even years later. So I'm really not that anxious to upgrade the A6000 that much. You know, I'd like something that has 4K video in a size like this. You know, mirrorless size. But really, the camera that I would be most interested to get next would be the LX100 Mark II. Something also pocket-sized, but that has, and really high-quality images, but something that has a zoom lens. So anyways, see you guys later. Bye.